The sound of shattering glass woke the quiet town of Darlington just after midnight. Malik Johnson, owner of a small cafe that had become a community hub, rushed downstairs to find a brick lying among shards of his front window. Tied to it was a note written in jagged black marker. "Go back where you came from." He stood there barefoot in his pajamas, the night air cold on his skin, his reflection fractured in the broken glass. Anger rose in him, hot and heavy, but beneath it was something colder, fear. This wasn't the first time. A month earlier, his teenage son Jamal had come home pale and trembling, describing how a pickup truck had tailed him for blocks, its engine roaring as if daring him to trip. The family's car tires had been slashed. And now this. Malik knew exactly what it meant. Someone in his own town wanted him out. Detective Sarah Lane got the call at dawn. She'd seen plenty of vandalism, but something about the note gnawed at her. She walked the cafe floor, crouching to inspect the brick. Too clean. Gloves, probably. Which meant planning. She listened to Malik describe the other incidents. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he spoke. His son, Jamal, lingered nearby, his eyes full of questions Sarah couldn't yet answer. Sarah promised she'd look into it. But part of her already knew what she was up against. In Darlington, crimes like these rarely made it past the word mischief. Over the next weeks, Sarah started digging. She found reports scattered across the department's files. A smashed mailbox outside a new family's home. A slur spray-painted on a grocery store wall. Tires slashed outside the church after Sunday service. Every report was logged as minor damage or prank. None flagged as hate crimes. None investigated deeply. Sarah knew better. She saw a pattern. Escalation. Someone was testing how far they could go without consequence. The break came by accident. A local convenience store, 2 blocks from Malik's cafe, had cameras pointed at the street. Sarah combed through hours of grainy footage until she saw him, a man in a dark hoodie, moving casually toward the cafe in the dead of night, brick in hand. At one point, he lowered his hood. The face that appeared on screen made Sarah's stomach drop. Officer David Keller. Keller wasn't just any officer. He'd been on the force for nearly 20 years. The kind of man who shook hands at charity picnics, who posed for photos with Little League teams. Sarah stared at the screen, hoping she'd gotten it wrong. But there he was. Keller. When she pulled his record, the unease deepened. Keller had been the one signing off on many of the downgraded reports. He wasn't just ignoring the pattern, he was helping create it. Digging deeper, Sarah uncovered more. Messages passed in private group chats between Keller and a handful of other officers. Jokes laced with racial slurs. Smirking references to teaching people their place. Screenshots of reports deliberately marked down. They weren't just colleagues, they were collaborators. Darlington's guardians were also its tormentors. The worst came on a sticky summer night. Jamal was closing the cafe alone when 2 masked men cornered him in the alley. They shoved him against a brick wall, spitting words he'd heard whispered before but never with such venom. When they finally ran off, Jamal staggered home, shaken and bruised. Malik, gripping his son's shoulders, called the police. The report came back the next morning, verbal dispute, no physical injury. Sarah read it and felt her stomach twist. The department wasn't broken, it was complicit. She brought Keller in under the pretense of routine questioning. Sliding the report across the table, she kept her eyes locked on him. "You marked this down as a dispute," she said evenly. "But it wasn't. Was it?" Keller leaned back, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Paperwork error." Sarah didn't blink. She pushed the still image from the surveillance video toward him. Keller's face froze, caught mid-step with the brick in his hand. For a moment, the room was silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. "You've been terrorizing the same people you swore to protect," Sarah said, her voice low but sharp as glass. Keller didn't smirk this time. Within days, the FBI swept in. Keller and 3 other officers were indicted. Hate crime charges. Abuse of authority. Cover-up. The arrest sent shockwaves through Darlington. Some neighbors couldn't believe it. How could men they trusted, men who wore the badge, be capable of this? Others weren't surprised at all. For them, it was confirmation of something they'd known in their bones: the system had never been built for them. Malik reopened the cafe after weeks of repairs. But the air felt different. Customers came, sat with their coffee, glanced nervously toward the door. Trust had been shattered as surely as his window. He had the front pane replaced, but instead of keeping it plain, he asked the glassworker to etch 2 words across the bottom corner. "We belong." Detective Lane stayed with the department, but she no longer looked at her colleagues the same way. Every uniform carried a question mark now. One night, sitting alone in her office, she whispered to herself. The crime wasn't just the brick. The crime was how long the silence lasted.